So in one of my live streams last week, I ordered a Shadow Interlock V2 chain. I've got my bike up on the bike rack right there. I just installed some tires. Now we're gonna install this chain. So in this video, I'm gonna show you how to install a Shadow Interlock V2 chain. And yeah, so let's get right into it. Now, first thing you're gonna need is your Shadow Interlock V2 chain, or any chain for that matter. They make a very hard point about using a Shadow chain breaker. I'm gonna prove that false. This is an $8 chain breaker from Walmart, but it shouldn't be $8, okay? If you look at this chain breaker, it is designed a lot like a Shadow Interlock chain breaker, or Shadow, it's designed a lot like a Shadow chain breaker. It's got the removable pin. It's got the hole here for the pin, for the link, the pin when it comes out of the link. Mine looks a little bit bent, but I've had it, I've used it quite a bit. And yeah, so we're gonna show you how to put it on. This is all you're gonna need. But they make they make real junky $7 Walmart chain breakers, and you want to stay away from those. I'll put a link in the description to a good chain breaker if you want. But you don't necessarily need to spend $1 million on a chain breaker, because you can get away just fine with the right chain breaker if you can find it at the right price. So I'm going to pop off my old chain here. My old chain is on. It doesn't matter which link you break on that. There's going to be a master pin on the interlock chains, but the bike mechanics are going to hate me, but it doesn't matter. Just pop off whichever one you want. They all work the same. So you're going to put your chain here, get it a better angle. We're going to put our chain in the chain breaker, unscrew the chain breaker all the way so that it can fit in. Then we're just going to pick the link that we want to break, put it in here. The biggest thing here is make sure that it's flush, and you want to make sure that the pin is lining up into the pin on the chain. So when you spin it up, make sure that that is hitting exactly on the pin. If it's off-centered, you're going to break your chain breaker. And as you do it, turn it very slowly so that you can see it start to push through. So there we go. We just felt the pressure relieve. It just pushed through, and it's good. So I am kind of a hoarder, and so I'm going to keep this chain to use later if I have an issue with it, another chain. I'm going to pop it just enough. I don't want this pin to come all the way out of the link. I want it to be held on just enough so that I can pop it back in later. So let's see. The goal here is that you've pushed it up enough that you can get this off. And so I didn't quite get it enough. I'm gonna pop it just a little bit more instead of popping it all the way through. Now you can pop it all the way through, but if you wanna relink it later, it's a big headache. So I think it's always best just to leave them just a little bit undone. Stupid bitch. Okay. So I'm just going to pop it just a little bit more, like a tiny bit of a turn. Okay, I think that's good. And now, we're still, okay, good. So that's a little bit much. You can't see it. That's a little bit much. I could have gone just a little bit more, but that's good enough. Now we've got that off. Chain is off. Now we're going to pop that new chain on. So here, let me show you. This is the chain breaker you do not want to use. These are junky. Don't use this kind of chain breaker. Use this kind. Okay, so we're going to throw on this chain right now. And what you need to do first is you need to figure out where you need to break the chain. So I've got my chain here. Now, it's also important to know these are supposedly directional. The little heads, I guess you'd call it. I don't know what you call it. The heads that are facing this way, you want those to be the way that you pedal. So the way that I'm going to put this on is going to be this. And if you guys have followed the channel for a while, you know that my shit is always on backwards. Like this, backwards. This is going to be backwards. Why? I don't know. Ask YouTube. So anyway, this way is backwards. It would be the right way if I was pedaling this way, but since my bike's upside down, it needs to be flip-flopped. And now this is going to be forward. All right, so we've got this set up so that it's on the right way. And none of that matters right now because I'm just figuring out where I'm going to break the link. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to wrap this around this sprocket. And then I'm going to wrap this part around over the sprocket also. And you're going to be able to see a spot where they kind of line up. So where this, let's crank it. Hello. Oh, I can't crank it any farther because it's a stupid bike stand. Okay, so where this link is right here, this one that's not connected, this one right there, where that one is, you want to find where that links up. And so if I use this one right here, I'm going to have this much slack to pull my wheel back. Since my chain stays slammed right now, that's going to be okay. If I go back to this one, I'm going to have way too much slack and it might not work out. So I want to pull it almost as tight as I can and then find where I can grip that. And you don't want it to be too tight, otherwise you're gonna have to force it over the sprocket and it's gonna be tough. So I'm gonna break it right here, and I don't need to leave the pin in because this pin is already here, and I'll just pop that pin in. So right here is where I'm gonna break it. That might be a little bit too tight. Let me see if I'm slammed all the way or not. That's slammed all the way. So I don't want to do, yeah, this one should be fine. I can slam it and tighten it. All right, so we're gonna break the chain right there. You don't necessarily need to pull it all the way off. You just want to line it up in your chain breaker. Okay, so see how I've got it lined up? I put my thumb over it to hold it in place while I crank this in, and then I look, see that it's lined up and pushing into the pin. If it is, if everything looks Gucci, then we're just gonna pop it. Now this is not, so what I noticed here is that my chain was starting to tweak, and if you don't notice that, you're gonna break your chain breaker. So pay close attention to it, make sure everything's working right. And now we're gonna full send. It looks lined up, it looks good, we're gonna full send. There we go, we just heard it snap. Crank, crank, crank. And then it just popped out all the way right there. So we can catch it in our hand. Nope, maybe it's not out all the way. I feel like it is, but maybe it's not. Catch it, unscrew it. The chain is completely split. And then we're gonna get this guy, this old link out of here. Save this for another time, because if you break a link or anything, or you need a piece of chain, it's just always good to have around. Okay, you can turn it into a bracelet. You can just hold on to it like a hoarder, okay? Now, when you're putting this on, you do not want to try and put it on like this. It's gonna be frustrating. This is gonna get in the way. You wanna pull it back off and wrap it around your chainstay right here. I guess the top part of your chainstay. You want it to be up here because it's just out of the way, all right? We want it to be over here. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the end of this right here onto this, and we're gonna get it started onto that right there. I'm gonna set this chain breaker back. Okay, so lift it back. We're just gonna set it right there. See that? Put it in, got it started, and then we'll slide that over top. This part gets really frustrating because what you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to tighten this and push it back through, and you wanna make sure that it's lined up so that it goes through, and I'll show you what I mean here. But you've got it started, that's half the battle. Get your trusty chain breaker and unscrew it all the way. You should do this before because I can't let go of the chain, otherwise I'm gonna drop it. You should do this before. Unscrew it all the way, and maybe a little bit more. Cool, my chain breaker's bent right there. It's gonna break on this one, I bet. So maybe I spoke too highly of these, but we're gonna try and force it, okay? We're gonna get it to work. I have a hammer too if I need to. The way you're gonna put this in is that this pin pushes right here. So you've gotta unscrew this a lot and then get it in there so that your pin goes in that hole. All right. And then pin is in the hole. This is here. We're gonna hold this in place and start to tighten it. By tightening it, we're pushing that pin down. But it's very, 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 very important that you have that pin lined up perfectly so that when this tightens down, they connect perfectly. If they don't connect perfectly, you're gonna split it, you're gonna break your chain breaker. And if you're using your friend's chain breaker, you're gonna break his chain breaker. Like, everyone's gonna hate you when that happens. So I'm sorry that it's a little bit hard to see. I'm just watching it and holding it in place with my thumb. I see it's making contact. It's lined up perfectly. We're gonna just start, okay, it's coming off a little bit. So I don't know if you can see, but it's lined up pretty good. It's just off just a tiny bit. I'm gonna make sure that it doesn't snap off, because what we wanna do is we wanna get it started so that it's moving through just a little bit. Then we wanna make sure that this bottom link right here is lined up perfectly. And sometimes it's not going to be, but you don't even wanna worry about it until you've got this started. So there, I got it lined up. It's going good now. Oh, I think, yeah. So that pop was just the pin sliding in place. We got the pin going, and now it's going in right here. So as you're tightening it, you'll start to feel some more pressure. And when that pressure starts to happen, it's because the pin is coming through this part. The pin is starting to come through and it's starting to enter this second link right here. And so when it gets to that point, God, we really did a number on the chain breaker. When it gets to that point, what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna make sure that it's lined up perfectly. Because if it's not lined up perfectly, you're gonna try and force it and the pin is just, it's just gonna be a bad day. So get that going, and as you're tightening it again, back off a little bit and push that link down in there. Just make sure that it's good, and then give it a few more tightens. Everything looks good, so you can see through the hole. It's starting to come through. We're good, we're lined up. Just heard a little pop. And then it goes to a spot. So the way that these are designed is that they're a little concave, and that means it's like wider on the ends than it is in the middle. And so we just hit an easier spot where it was easier to turn, and that's because it's seated in the right place. Maybe we even pushed it just a little bit too far. You can see how it's sticking out there. And what you'll notice, I don't know if you can see it, I'm sure you can. So this one is the pin that we've been working with. This is the master link because it doesn't have these divots. When I took the chain off, I just broke any of them. I didn't break the master link, but this is supposed to be the master link, and it's supposed to be designed a little bit so it's a little bit easier to work with and pop in and out. And we just, chain breaker just ate it. There it goes. There, bye-bye chain breaker. It's just talking about how you don't need a shadow chain breaker. You really still don't, because that piece isn't the end of the world being on there, but I'm gonna have to get a new chain breaker after this. There we go, we just lined it up the right way. I got my chain on the right way, and now we're just gonna pop it over our back wheel, pull our cranks back, get it around the pedal, put it on here, and boop. Now we've got our chain on, we can give our back wheel some tension. Looks like I'm gonna need quite a bit of tension here. Okay, so after installing the Shadow Interlock V2 chain, I'm gonna say it is, without a shadow chain breaker, it's still possible. I broke my chain breaker on this one. I was just talking about how good it is, but that's probably my third or fourth time breaking a shadow chain with that chain breaker. So, you know, anyway, ease of installation, it's a little bit tougher than a full link chain with a master pin or whatever you call it. Like, that's pretty easy. You just need some pliers, you pop it off, you break it, like, it's easy. This one, working with half links, you've got to use your chain breaker like a wizard. You've got to pop it on. You've got to get it started right. You've got to get it lined up. Like, it is pretty tough. So ease of installation on a half link chain, especially the Shadow Interlock chain, I'm going to give it a pretty low score. But other than that, The chain feels light. It's definitely really sturdy. You can tell it's thick, it's put together well, and I'm happy with it. Just for you guys who are newer to maintenance, maybe you want to take it to your bike shop to get it installed, or it's going to be a little bit, it's going to be a little tricky, okay? Fair warning. So I'm excited to crank around on this chain, see how I like it, see if I hear any squeaks, any cracks, any weird noises. I'll keep you guys updated.